I had a lot of questions about Creality's latest enclosed Core XY printer. Is it good? Will it replace my current favourite FDM printer? And why the fuck did I lift its 40 kilograms onto my worktop just to show the box? I think if we cut to the chase, the biggest question is whether or not Creality have been the first to properly trump Bambu's 2 years of domination, or whether this is just another cheap large clone. And honestly, I'm kind of hoping it's the former, so we can all move on from the "is this better than Bambu" thumbnails that, yes, we're all doing. Anyway, honestly, there's many ways that I think this exceeds even the X1, but there is one small, and I'm going to say up front now and not bullshit you, it's a minor thing where it's clear that some things haven't quite fully clicked for Creality, but it's so damn close. We'll get into all that. Hi, I'm Ross, and this is Fohammer Videos. Now, my relationship with Creality printers have been love-hate. I've generally enjoyed the machines themselves, but a lot of the ancillary stuff around it, with the over-reliance on so many different models on the market and messy applications, have been an element I've often referred to as Crealityness, and it's never been meant in the most positive of ways. But the K2 genuinely is a clear sign of a new way for the brand. From unboxing to use, this has been an absolute joy to use, and I genuinely hope this is the start of a new, modern Creality. Let's walk through it. Unboxing can be tricky because it's heavy. Aside the cardboard, this is 40 kilos, which is near on 90 to 100 pounds, something like that. I don't know how pounds work. I use them to spend to buy things here in the UK. Anyway, this weight is about the same as my doctor probably suggests I should lose. But included within this weight is the CFS and a couple of small rolls of filament just to get you started, along with some packaging and various plastic retainers. Setup is straightforward. Unbolt the CFS and then unbolt some retainer clips and then unbolt the bed. And as small as a benefit as it is, I was genuinely happy to see that every bolt you remove, along with all the bolts I use to connect things like the filament reel holder, all have the same 2.5mm hex head, so there's no need to fumble around with different tools, despite Creality providing a decently stocked tool case with this machine. Once you've got it out, just attach the screen and the side filament reel holder, plug it in, and you're pretty much good to go. Walk through the on-screen setup guide, connect to Wi-Fi and Creality Cloud if you like, and then it's ready to print. Now, if you get this as a combo with the CFS, that CFS connection is a bit of a longer process, but I do want to talk about that separately because it's got its own features. And I suspect there'll be some people out there getting a K2 Plus without the add-on. Now, I have to say, I was immediately impressed by the build quality. The sturdy metal frame, which clearly adds to the overall weight, is very indicative of a unit that should last a long time. It's got an almost redundant USB port covered on the right hand side, and I say redundant because network, and in regard to network, yeah, it's got Ethernet, it's also got the power socket on the back, and it's got built-in Wi-Fi too. One thing I'd like to have seen is slightly adjustable feet, and I have actually seen a couple of unfortunate reports of the existing feet shearing off in shipping for some people, and the only solution seems to be a thread extractor to get the remaining parts of the screw out, and then a new bolt to put it back on. But as someone whose hobby is 3D printing more than 3D printers, again, the tech stuff just doesn't excite me. The things that I love are mostly just the nice convenience features. So it's got dual part cooling fans either side of the chassis, which are great, and it's also got dual VOC filters at the back of the machine. And what I love about this the most is that they can also be used to cool the chamber, which means no longer do I need to have the glass lid off or the door open just to ensure my filament doesn't get too hot. So when compared to the K1 or any other open printer, this significantly dampens those fan noises to the point that I'm comfortable sharing a room with it. Not like that. But anyway, the point is, the CFS itself changing filament is actually louder than the printer. And this also has a heater between those exhaust fans too, so for tougher filaments, it can heat the chamber up to 60 degrees. It's got some usual modern stuff like the PEI plate slides into place easily, and the hot end has an easily removable cover for better access to the components that frequently need maintenance or replacements, which is an upgrade from the K1 series. And speaking of maintenance, the dual lead screws on either side of the print plate are much simpler to get access to for cleaning and re-greasing when compared to what I've seen on similar printers. But it's where Creality have included the CFS that really impresses me, and this is intended to be backward compatible with the last year of Creality's printers too, once they get round to releasing the conversion hardware packs for them. Now, setup of this was also straightforward, thanks to every part being clearly labelled. Okay, the translation isn't that great, but the pictograms make it obvious where everything goes. And with the hub included, you can actually connect up to 3 additional CFS units for a total of 16 automatic material changes in one print. Now, one thing I've just got to say, and this isn't about this printer, but just these in general, we really need to pick a brand agnostic acronym for all these different filament loading systems. We now have AMS, ACE, MMU, whatever Elegoo plan to make, and now CFS for Creality filament system. And again, I'm not blaming Creality here, but I just don't think we need this many names for what is essentially the same thing across different brands. Now, personally, I prefer AMS or MMU because AMS was the first one I had, and MMU just means multi-material unit. It's agnostic on its own. Anyway, rant over. What's your preference? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I really like this. Not only does it come across as a better sealed unit than other units, which should increase the likelihood of filament staying dry, and it supports both the plastic and all the cardboard spools that I've used, the accessibility of parts, the way it connects up to the K2, and the way you load the filament are marked improvements over the competition. Now, it does have a built-in temperature and humidity sensor, which is on the front display, but you need to know it's not a heated system. It won't dry your filament out. There are 2 recesses at the bottom to hold desiccant bags for this purpose. But yeah, it's the little things like the flexible hoses to load the filament into, where the Bambu AMS could often do with a printed guide, or the lever on the back of the CFS hub, which lets you easily remove the PTFE tube and swap over to the side-mounted reel should you want to use a filament like TPU, a material which is notorious for being trouble in these loader systems. I think due to the size of the K2 Plus though, I'd have actually liked to have seen them extend the width of this CFS to add a 5th reel, which would have both trumped the existing 4-colour systems and matched the number of reels available at once on the Prusa XL. But I expect it was kept this size for what I presume is an upcoming K2 normal? That's just a guess, but it makes sense to have a lower cost version as a direct rival, right? Another handy feature I like is that Creality have even included an RFID reader on the side of the printer, so changing filament on that side reel when using a roll with a compatible RFID tag is as simple as scanning it across the reader, and when you hear a beep, it's been read, and you just mount the reel as normal. And I'm saying compatible RFID tags because right now these only work with Creality filaments, but it would be nice to see the industry adopt a standard of RFID data across all material brands. But if you are using filament with no RFID tag, it doesn't matter if you're using the CFS or the side reel. You can actually configure this manually in the UI to tell it what the material type is and the colour. I'm going to come back to the UI in a minute. With this being a multi-material unit, it does of course have a purge chute coming out the back, commonly known as a poop chute, but I don't want to be too crass in my videos. Well, I want to be crass on my terms. But next to this is also a really handy rubberized nozzle cleaner with little rubber teeth, which personally I think is much better and more easily replaceable than the little nodule thing on the Bambu lab machines. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not the biggest user of multicolour printing because I just don't like the waste of both material and time. I'd rather print parts in separate colours and stick them together like I did on my K1 reviews, but there just aren't many designers out there making models that way. I am, however, a big fan of these systems auto-loading the filament for me, and when I've got 2 of the same material loaded, it's swapping to the next one automatically when one runs out. But honestly, the handiest feature I noticed of this machine, as tiny as it is the same thing I noticed on the K1. You see, when you're printing, you can often get errant bits of filament loose in the chamber. Heck, when it does, it's often the pre-print calibration that I just peel off and throw below the bed. So the fact that the base of the printer is level with the door frame, it's a small thing, but it means you can easily slide out these errant bits of crud without having to dig around inside. Yeah, small stuff, but it's handy over time, especially for lazy people like me who just leave crap here. This has other great modern features too, like a 1080p camera used for both time-lapse creation and spaghetti detection, though I do think the fixed angle of the camera is a bit high for time-lapses because it cuts off the bottom of your print before it's even reached a third of the build height. There is a second camera in these machines, and it's actually inside the print head itself, which replaces the K1 Max's LiDAR sensor, which apparently was meant to come to the other K1s, but never did. But this isn't directly monitorable. It's only used by the system firmware to calibrate flow rate and pressure advance, which are two great features to ensure your filament output is spot on. Honestly, I think this is one of the reasons why these modern printers are more plug and play. Most of the time now, all you need to do is get the temperature right, which for most materials it commonly is. So with all these great features, when I look at the usability of this machine up against something like my Bambu X1, well, I've got to say this not only stacks up and is a larger machine than anything they offer. In a few simple ways, they've done what no other brand has done yet, and are actually gone beyond Bambu in terms of some of the functional hardware design. So what's the catch? Well, I've got to be honest, it's the software again. Now don't get me wrong, Creality have done some wonders with their phone app for one. I used to frequently complain that this was a very unintuitive mess, designed more to make you spend money on some weird Temu style Creality storefront with tokens and crap. But this has since been tidied up significantly. But I did still have a couple of issues where the app just wouldn't connect to my camera to check on the print. And I'm not going to complain about the UI. I mean, I can't complain about the UI because this is such a direct copy of the UI on the Bambu X1. It's almost like for like, including color. Like, I don't want to have a go at this, but I can't not call it out for being so on the nose. I suppose if it's not broke, don't fix it. Is that the right analogy? No, if good artists imitate, great artists steal. So if Creality are an artist, yeah, copy the UI. Maybe this is a Clipper standard, I don't know. But the thing I'm not the biggest fan of is Creality print. Now, again, it's usable, sure, but it's got a lot of the aforementioned Creality-ness. So for those who aren't aware, this is based on Orca Slicer, which is a good thing. Orca Slicer is based on Bambu Studio, and that is based on Prusa Slicer. And the Bambu element in all this created what I would call a more visually streamlined workflow. It's a little thing, but like having the settings on the left, the editing in the middle, and the output data before you send it to print on the right, you know, in the order of input, process, output, in that left to right journey, it worked. Creality have now reversed this back to what it was with Prusa Slicer, and well, I just don't like it in the same way an old man would yell at a cloud. And there are a few odd bugs as well, like at one point I tried to delete a part because it had started failing mid-print, but I couldn't actually navigate round that part of the UI in the network connection to do it. Is that an own Orca bug, or is it something Creality have done? I just don't like it at all. But yeah, I think in this area, and a few people have pointed it out, Creality have got a few bugs to sort out, and they need to improve this software. They could do with just going back to how it was and changing the branding. I think that would have been a bit better for everyone. I genuinely feel we don't need this many differing slicers on the platform when they're all based on each other, and then we're changing the interface. But I get how getting used to one potentially not locks you into a brand's ecosystem, but holds you a bit more reliant on that brand's ecosystem and not wanting to go elsewhere, which is good for the brand, but not for everyday users who might want to chop and change printers every few years depending on who's got the best one. There's so many elements of the printer and the hardware where they've taken what exists already and made it better, but in my opinion, Creality print, they've taken Orca Slicer, which is great, and made it worse. So now there's the bit that I need to say to cover my ass, is just the fact that we've got Creality's history of quality to consider, but we aren't going to truly understand where this machine fares until a good year or so into its life. And on the whole, the K1s have been pretty decent. But honestly, I think this is a great machine, and since I've only got room to store one in my office to use, yeah, I'm actually going to be replacing my Bambu X1 with the K2 Plus. And that's not any kind of political anti-Bambu thing based on what they've done recently. It's just that I've got this printer does what the Bambu printer does for me, but this one gives me more print volume. And it's also got potentially more upgradability too. Because this is more open source, it means that the more technical users out there can connect to it and use it in whatever ways they like. So yeah, whilst I'm not going to be pro or anti recent changes from other brands, because despite my own views on it, I have to remain objective as a reviewer, I would say it was probably a bad time for Bambu to release an update which makes their machines more restrictive. With things like this coming out, let's just see where it goes, shall we? There's still some software work to do here, but I'm gonna trust/hope that Creality are on the right path. Seeing them implement a more up-to-date technical wiki is a decent step in the right direction too. I think it's a bit too early to tell where this one's going to end up because there's a lot of competition on the horizon, but this is certainly one that's on track to becoming the new top dog and putting Creality back at the head of the home user market. And it's been a while since the Ender. Do you think we'll see a smaller K2? Let me know in the comments. I want to say thanks for watching, with a huge thanks going to our members who are on screen now. Please consider joining them. You'll get your name up in lights along with early access, exclusive videos and Discord roles. Until next time, movie quote. Fohammer out.